all the makings of an avoidance of any jail time. But more importantly, it was an evasion of the more serious allegations facing Hunter Biden and the Biden family. So it is historic in the sense that the president's son is going to plead guilty to criminal acts. It is going to be very controversial for critics. I think for many, this is going to look like you ticketed the getaway driver after a bank robbery. You know, many people view the influence peddling allegations as being a very serious form of corruption with potential crime. And he's going to plead guilty to relatively minor tax and gun charges.
He said, as recently as last month, my son did nothing wrong. Well, now his own Justice Department has entered into a plea agreement where his son has pled guilty to 2 crimes, and has been charged with a third crime, a felony. So clearly his son did something wrong.
So according to our sources, this U.S. attorney has agreed to recommend to the judge that Biden receive a sentence of probation, so no jail for those tax misdemeanor charges.
Well, thanks for joining me today, everyone. I appreciate it very much, and especially thanks to my buddy Governor Newsom, who's one of the best governors I've ever worked with. And Arthi, my director of my Office of Science and Technology and Policy. And early this year, we met with my Council on Science and Technology Advisors and some America's top minds to discuss the possibilities and the risks associated with artificial intelligence. In May, Kamala and I convened the CEOs of American companies foremost involved in AI development to underscore their responsibility in making sure the products are used safely before making them public. The same here today. I want to hear directly from the experts, and these are some of the world's leading experts on this issue and the intersection of technology and society, who we can provide a range of perspectives for us and on AI's enormous promise and its risks. As I've said before, we'll see more technological change in the next 10 years than we've seen in the last 50 years, and maybe even beyond that. And AI is already driving that change in every part of American life, often in ways we don't notice. AI is already making it easier to search the internet, helping us drive to our destinations while avoiding traffic in real time. AI is going to change the way we teach, learn, and help solve challenges like disease and climate change, and giving you the time to focus on the things that matter most to you personally. But in seizing this moment, we need to manage the risks to our society, to our economy, and our national security. My administration is committed to safeguarding America's rights and safety, from protecting privacy to addressing bias and disinformation, to making sure AI systems are safe before they are released. Last October, we proposed an AI Bill of Rights to ensure that important protections were built into the AI systems from the very start. Earlier this year, I signed an executive order to direct my cabinet to root out bias in the design and use of AI. And in May, we announced a new strategy for funding for responsible AI development so Americans can lead the way and drive breakthroughs in this critical area, from cybersecurity to public health to agriculture to education, and quite frankly, so much more. Social media has already shown us the harm that powerful technology can do without the right safeguards in place. That's why I said at the State of the Union that Congress needs to pass bipartisan privacy legislation to impose strict limits on personal data collection, ban targeting advertising to our children, and require companies to put health and safety first. Next month, the Vice President will convene the civil rights leaders of America, consumer protection groups, and civil society to continue our administration's ongoing engagement on AI. But today, I'd like to hear more from this group because I have a lot to learn, and we also have a lot to discuss. So I'd like to ask the press to leave the room. Thank you for coming in.
Pennsylvania for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Chairman Wenstrup and Ranking Member Ruiz, for convening the Select Subcommittee today. And thank you, Dr. Walensky, for appearing before us here today. As members of this Select Subcommittee, it's incumbent upon us to uncover the truth behind the destructive COVID-19 pandemic and the flawed policies implemented by our nation's public health officials. Millions of lives were lost, families were destroyed, businesses and livelihoods across our country were crushed, all while the uncertainty of the panic ensued. In these moments of uncertainty, those who swore oaths to protect often look to their elected officials, to their community leaders and public health organizations for guidance. However, misguided, erroneous, and often confusing policies were implemented. Contradictory statements were habitually made by the same officials charged with guiding the public through this widespread health emergency. This virus and related government policies led to vaccine mandates, lost jobs, supply chain problems, and the isolation of our nation's young people. In order to protect our constituents and the American public from future pandemics, we are working to understand the truth behind the coronavirus pandemic, and we've waited a long time for the answers. On March 29, 2021, you appeared on the Rachel Maddow Show, and you said, and I'm quoting now, "Our data from the CDC today suggests that vaccinated people do not carry the virus, don't get sick, and it's just not in the clinical trials, but it's also in real-world data," unquote. Yet, 3 days later, on April 1st of 2021, a CDC spokesperson had to walk back your own words and officially told the New York Times that, and again I'm quoting, Dr. Walensky spoke broadly during this interview. It's possible that some people who are fully vaccinated could get COVID-19. The evidence isn't clear whether they can spread the virus to others. We are continuing to evaluate the evidence. Dr. Walensky, simply yes or no, does a spokesperson from the CDC going on record and correcting the statements that you made undermine and fracture the confidence in CDC leadership?
Dr. Joyce, I know you know that I was speaking in generalities, that we saw data and evidence that was over 90% that the vaccines were effective in preventing severe disease and death, and in fact in preventing symptomatic disease, and that once people had been vaccinated, even if they were to get infected, they were not getting sick and they were not able to transmit to others.
But Dr. Walensky, you stated that vaccinated people, and I'm quoting, do not carry the virus. This fractures and undermines the confidence in your leadership. The CDC is the nation's leading science-based, data-driven service organization that's mission is to protect public health. Yet during the pandemic, there was continuously a countrywide perception of the shift about the nature and the risks of COVID. This is underscored by those inconsistencies in messaging, and unfortunately in your messaging, including a CDC spokesperson who had to walk back comments that you yourself made on television. In fact, it could be said that these inconsistencies led to the findings of a survey conducted by the Pew Research Center, where again I'm quoting, 57% of U.S. adults say false and misleading information about the coronavirus and vaccines has contributed to the problems that the country has faced dealing with the corona outbreak. Dr. Walensky, do you feel that any accountability regarding the public perception and the lack of widespread confidence in the CDC and its public officials, do you feel that that rests on the shoulders of leadership?
I think would dispute the framing of that question. I think that there is increasing confidence in the CDC and that there has been an undermining of scientific
We have polling from the Pew Research Center that says more than half of American adults felt that there was misleading and false information. Dr. Walensky, is the CDC not capable of accurately reporting to the country the generalities in a public health situation, specifically during the COVID pandemic?
Actually, we can get back to the generalities that you speak to, and that is the quote at the Rachel Maddow show where I said they can't carry the virus, meaning they can't transmit it to others. That was true for the Alpha variant at the time that I said it. Even those who might have had a positive test, who might have had asymptomatic infection, a breakthrough asymptomatic infection, were not transmitting that virus to anyone else.
But your leadership has fractured the American public's confidence in the CDC. We are trying to work together as a bipartisan committee to work forward to understand how this misinformation and how these comments are